Jim, I had such a great time last night. I was out with my girlfriends. We have this like monthly dinner date,
Sure.
you know, and I was really excited to get this lentil soup. I looked at the menu during the day, and so we all sit down, we order, and we're kind of chit chatting, and everybody gets just beautiful dishes. And my lentil soup comes. I'm ready to dive in, and one of my girlfriends knows that I'm kind of doing this new workout routine. It's
Sure,
pretty,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, hardcore. And she's like, listen, I know your workout routine, and there is no way you are getting enough protein in that lentil soup.
Yeah, you know, Caryn, I hear this all the time. I hear it from patients, I hear it from athlete friends, I hear it from friends, family. But in fact, almost every food we eat has protein. For example, quinoa has protein, lentils have protein, edamame, which is soybeans,
My
have protein,
favorite.
almonds have protein, and guess what?
Yeah.
Even broccoli has protein.
Yeah, that doesn't really register.
Right, exactly. And in fact, fun fact, a large serving of broccoli has more protein than an egg.
Stop.
Yeah, there's about 8 grams of protein in a large serving of broccoli and about 6 in an egg. So, some of these plants, these are all, they have protein.
I think that we're just such a protein obsessed society. Can you please just break it down and tell us exactly what it is and really how much do we need?
So protein makes up an important part of our bodies. You know, it makes up some of the structures like muscle. We all know that's made from protein. Our
Yeah.
organs are made from protein. The skeleton has a lot of protein. We also use protein to kind of run our machinery. You know, enzymes and transport proteins and things like that. And our body's kind of constantly, you know, wearing out, and we have to build it back up. So we have to consume protein for the day-to-day maintenance. And for example, when you're hitting the gym and you're wanting to build muscle,
Yeah.
the protein that we consume helps you accomplish that.
Okay, so that makes sense. Now, but how much do we really need?
Well, so the average person, say who's average activity level, say a 160-pound person, needs around 60 grams of protein. Now, endurance athletes need a little bit more. They might need 80 grams of protein. And if you're a bodybuilder, you're NFL player, you might need even twice the amount. You might need up to 120 grams of protein.
Yeah, okay.
Right? But guess what? Those NFL players, those bodybuilders, those marathon runners,
Yeah.
they're not getting the same number of calories that you're probably getting. So let's just say a few years ago, I trained for an Ironman triathlon,
Yeah.
and I needed more protein, right? But guess what? I wasn't getting that 1,800 calories, 2,000 calories most people are eating. I'm getting 4,000 calories, right? So when you double your calorie intake, what happens to your protein intake?
More calories equals more protein.
Exactly.
You can't just get protein.
That's exactly right. When we get it from food. Now you can if you're using supplements and all that, but when we eat real food, we're getting it in a healthy package.
Okay, so we know how much we need. Now, what happens if we go overboard and we get too much?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the average American actually gets about twice as much protein as they really need. And unlike carbohydrate and fat, which we can store for future use, we can store it as energy,
Yeah.
protein we can't. So once we've met our protein needs, we've built that muscle, we've repaired our tissue, we've made some new enzymes, whatever's left gets converted to nitrogen, actually, which gets excreted by our kidneys. And so excess protein intake can put a tremendous strain on our kidneys. This has been associated with increased risk for kidney disease. Also, we know because protein helps our bodies build tissue, it can stimulate tissue growth. There's some tissue we don't want to grow in things like cancer cells, right? So
Okay, so that sounds scary to me.
right, exactly. So we know that too much protein is associated with an increased risk for cancer. And what's interesting about that is there's research that suggests that protein from animals carries a much higher risk for cancer, say, than the protein we get from plants.
Okay, yikes.
Yeah. It's pretty scary, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it really is.
Yeah.
So, okay, then adversely, and it doesn't sound like it's probably an issue after everything you just said, what happens if someone does not get enough protein?
So that can happen. It's typically, we see it in people who are calorie malnourished, right? They're not getting enough calories.
Right.
So I'm sure you've seen pictures, sadly enough, of starving children with the big bellies and things
Yeah.
like that. And that's a condition called kwashiorkor, which is a clinical protein deficiency. And I can honestly tell you, in the 30 plus years I've been practicing medicine, I have never seen a case of protein deficiency out in the wild. Maybe a couple patients who had end-stage terminal cancer, things like that.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't happen.
because they're not getting enough calories.
Well, right. And, and Caryn, listen, I know you're working out and stuff. I know that you follow a plant-based diet. I mean, you don't look malnourished to me.
And I don't feel like I am.
Right.
So listen, this lentil soup that we had last night was delicious, and I'd really like to share it with you today.
Right.
So let's just get cooking. All right, we're all prepped and ready to go. I cannot wait.
My mouth is already watering.
Yes.
I haven't even started cooking
I
yet.
know, it's delicious. Now, one thing first, this burner does make just a little bit of a hum, but I'll tell you what, this is an induction burner, which is so safe and so quick on the cook. I have an extra one at the house for during the holidays. If I had a kid in college, I'd
Sure.
tote him off to college with one of these things.
I wish I would have had one in all those years that I lived in the dorm.
Right,
It made healthy
right.
eating a lot easier. I'll tell
I
you that.
love this thing, and you can find it in our Amazon store as well.
yeah.
Okay, so we're going to cut this onion and cut off the top, and I have a little bowl off to the side for the scraps. And sometimes, I'll just keep, scraps of vegetables in the freezer and make a big pot of vegetables. I'm sorry, vegetables.
Vegetable stock.
Veggie
Kinda
stock
like this,
or broth,
right,
whatever.
Exactly.
We're just going to use a half of an onion today, so cut that little guy in half and then take off the outermost skin. Now, did you know, and I learned this in culinary, that a lot of these antioxidants sit on the outside of the onion, so we don't want to really take off too much of that skin. And I know it's like a doctor thing, but I feel really proud that I know that.
Well, I'm glad you listened in culinary school.
I did. Okay, so we're just going to cut this little guy up, slices, all the way around, and one right in here. This makes it so easy to cut an onion quickly so you're not crying all over the place. We've got our chops right in there. We're going to pull this guy right off of here, put him right into our soon-to-be veggie stock, and then this goes straight into our hot pan.
Well, Caryn, I noticed, there's no oil in that pan, and
I don't use any oil. Come
so
on.
how are you going to saute those onions without oil?
So this is so great. First of all, plants, as we are cooking with today, have a lot of water in them.
Right.
So you don't need to coat the pan already. That water is going to pull out of the onions, the carrots, and the celery, and it'll be a lot easier to get in there and let them just slide all around.
Oh, that's great. And there's, the added bonus is you're not getting all those extra calories and stuff that come with the oils, because a gram of carbohydrate or protein only has 4 calories, but a gram of oil has 9 calories. So
that should be illegal.
No, I mean it's crazy because you throw a teaspoon or two of oil in there, and all of a sudden you're getting 200, 300 calories that you just don't need.
Yeah, so, okay, so and who really just measures out a tablespoon or two
Right.
of oil, right?
That's right.
So if people are coating their pans with oil,
Right.
then they're adding 400, 500, 600 calories
Right,
before
right.
they've even put any ingredients
Exactly.
in
So.
there. Boo.
Yeah, right, exactly. I
you
love
can
this
see-
oil-free technique. It's amazing.
Yeah, and one thing that I've learned is that people, put oil in the pan to help everything slide around, just as we said. But I've learned also that if you're creating a buffer between your food and the pan, when you eat the food, that oil also creates a buffer
Oh, right,
between
right.
your taste buds
Right.
and the food. So you can't really taste that food.
Right. Yeah.
The way you think you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we're going to let this cook for just a few minutes and let the carrots get nice and soft, and the onions will become transparent.
So, Caryn, what happens if you do start to get a little stickage there?
Yeah, so if you do, not a big deal. And here's the thing also, if you see a little bit of browning
Yeah.
on your pan,
That's the yummy bits, right?
That's the yummy bits. It is kind of like a pre-burn, but we won't say the word burn. That's actually what you want, because then you take a little bit of water or vegetable broth, which you have off to the side,
Sure.
and just like a tablespoon or so of that water
Right.
or broth, and then you get under there.
So it's like deglazing the pan.
That is deglazing the
There we
pan,
go.
and you are creating so much more flavor in your meal just by pulling all of that beautiful
Oh, sure, yeah.
flavors up off the bottom of your pan.
This is already starting to smell so delicious.
Smells so good. I love
know,
this.
I
I love
know.
this mirepoix. So that's
Yeah.
your carrots and celery and onions. It's a nice, really nice base to so many soups or stews.
Right.
Okay, so that actually looks really good.
Yeah.
Now what I want to add now is, I'm going to use your spatula, thanks. This is a little bit of garlic. Now garlic is super just tender, and it burns very easily. So when you put your garlic in, really make sure that you're tossing everything around. It doesn't have too much stable time right there on the bottom of the pan, because the last thing you want is bitter garlic, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm going to have you get that going.
Yep.
And while that's going, I am going to take our red potatoes, which have been washed, but I'm leaving the skin on because I want to get all those nutrients that are, again, on the outside of the potato. And this will cook pretty quickly because I'm cutting them really small.
Like bite size, right?
Like bite size, because remember, this is a soup. We want it to stick, or we want it to sit right on your spoon.
Right.
These are sticky little guys. They're going to be great. And I love these red potatoes just because there's more color. They're nice and creamy, but not too creamy. They will not dissolve in the soup. But they will become very soft, very palatable. All right, one more, two more. There we go. So I'm going to put this right into your soup, or right into your pan. Whoops.
Man down.
Man down. God. Here we go. Gosh. Okay, now I'm going to pull our heat. Oh, do this. Now this is cumin, coriander, salt, pepper. Am I missing one?
That's it.
Okay. Now that we have, the water has come out of our vegetables in there, creating, so we don't need oil for this. You can see how the spices are really sticking to all the food. This is exactly what we want.
It smells so good. That cumin's starting to toast a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And that just really helps open up the spices as well, so you're really getting all the flavors.
Sure.
So now, at this point, we're just going to take our homemade veg broth and put it right into our pan. We're going to turn the heat way up because we want that to come to a boil and then down to a simmer. And these are our lentils.
Right.
So these are just brown or green lentils. Sometimes, packages will say brown or green. And because they are such a small lentil, or a small, I guess, legume.
Right. They were a legume.
Yeah. They're a little bit easier to digest.
Right.
And they also have a very thin skin. So sometimes people will soak them.
All right.
That'll shorten the cooking time.
Right.
Not necessary, though.
Well, that's because, lentils, do they cook, do lentils take as long to cook as, say, dry black beans?
No, because the skin is so thin.
Right. So,
Yeah,
so you
so
don't
it's
have to worry so much about it. Got it. That makes sense.
Not at all. So the magic will happen in about 20-25 minutes. And then eventually we will add this bowl of spinach.
What about rinsing?
Oh,
the
yeah.
lentils?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I would, especially if you're new to cooking lentils, I would prefer that you probably do rinse them, because sometimes you can get a little pebble in there or something, and nobody wants to bite down on that, right? So that wouldn't be a tender lentil.
Right.
I would say go ahead and give it a quick rinse.
Sure. Okay, great. And we're going to cover this?
We're going to cover this, bring it up to a boil, down to a simmer, and near the end of cooking time, we're going to add our spinach so it wilts down and it's all delicious.
And then we'll brighten it up with this at the end, right?
Yep. We'll talk about that when we get back.
Okay, great.
All right. All right, the place smells great, and we've already added in our spinach that's nice and wilted in there. And let's brighten this bad boy up a little bit with just a little bit of freshly squeezed lemon.
Wow, that
grab
looks
the
amazing.
seeds, make sure they don't get in there. And this is such a great way to brighten up any soup or stew without adding any extra salt or anything like that.
Right.
And by the way, it doesn't taste like you've added any lemon. Really, it just, as I said, brightens up the flavors.
So Caryn, we've been talking about protein. So tell us, how much protein does this soup have?
So if I've done my calculations correctly, I came up with 16 grams of protein per serving.
That's
and
amazing.
By the way, because you know how I love my fiber,
Right.
I also had to do that calculation and found out that it also has about a fourth of our daily allowance of fiber.
Wow.
I know.
And if 16 grams, that's what, third, really, almost a
Third,
third of our
fourth-ish, yeah.
And it's interesting because we talked earlier, we were so obsessed with protein. But for most of us, that's not the problem. It's not protein, it's fiber. But you know what? We're going to save that for another time because I'm ready to eat.
Yeah. I cannot wait.
Oh my God.
Oh, I know.
Sign me up.